Hey guys, welcome to Unshackling Sudokus and Puzzles. Today's video will be on hybrid Sudoku Little Killer Quadruples created by Philipp Blume. This Sudoku was posted by Philip on the CTC Discord server, and I had a go at this Sudoku some time back, and I found this Sudoku really interesting and fascinating and worth for a video. Even if you find the start logic, the middle of the Sudoku is really tricky, and I found this extremely challenging and good for a video. The link to solve this Sudoku is given in the description of the video. Please do give it a try and remember to come back and watch the video. So before we move on to the rules, one more thing is please do subscribe to the channel. The only way that you can let us know that you are enjoying the content that we are producing is if you subscribe to the channel. So we would highly appreciate if you click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. So let us move on to the rules now. Classic rules apply. Each row, column and 3 by 3 box contains the digits from 1 to 9 without repetitions. Little killer rules apply. In the diagonal direction indicated by the small arrow, the sum of the digits will be equal to the clue given. Digits may repeat in the direction of the arrow. The next part is the quadruple clue. So you will have some quadruple clues given inside the grid. For example, if you take this 3, 4, this 3 and 4 must be present at least once in the 4 cells encompassed by that. They must be present at least once. They can be present more than once, but must be present at least once. So these are the rules. With that, we'll start this Sudoku by Philip. So the thing to notice in this Sudoku is that if you consider any clue by itself, by any clue I mean the little killer clues, you'll never get anything. You cannot use any minimum, maximum logic, nothing. The 11 is restrictive, but even the 11 has lots of degrees of freedom. So the only way to continue the Sudoku or the start to the Sudoku is, so before that let me just highlight the different diagonal directions for better clarity. Let me use a green here, and for the 20 a different color. A blue maybe. Okay. So you must have guessed the start by now. The start to the Sudoku is not by considering the clues by themselves, but by considering them together. So if you add the sum of the little killer clues given at the left of the grid and the right of the grid, you have 30 from here, you have 35 from here, which gives you a total of 65. And you will notice that there is no overlap of colors. All the 4 colors are pretty unique and none of the colors are overlapping, right? So which means that if we add all these cells, we should be able to get 65, right? And now the trick to add all these cells is to combine them in a meaningful way or a way that makes sense. So let us try to combine them. From this box, the sum of the colors is 10, right? Minimum sum is 10. Again, from box 6, the minimum sum is 10. So we get 20 from here. And then we have box 2, which means out of which 8 cells are shaded, have colors. So which means that the minimum sum of 8 cells is going to be 36. That is if you exclude the 9. So 36 plus 10 that gives 56. And we have 3 cells shaded in box 3 that gives you 62. Minimum sum is 6, so that gives you 62. And 3 more cells are yet to be accounted for. So minimum values in all these cells can be 1. 62 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, that gives you 65. Now if you remember, at the start we had a total of exactly 65. So if you substitute minimum values in all possible cells, you are getting 65. So that is the global start to the Sudoku, a really fascinating start to the Sudoku. So let us start writing the pencil marks in the Sudoku now. This would be 1, 2, 3, 4. That should be a 1, 2, 3, 4. That should be 1, 2, 3. And this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 9 is excluded, so that becomes 9. And all these cells would be 1. So even if you find this start, the Sudoku is very, very tricky after this. So do not go anywhere. Just because you got the start, please do not close the video. The path is really tricky even after that. So stay tuned for the video. So now the one in box 4 has to be here. right? It cannot be anywhere else. So that becomes a 2, 3, 4 triplet, and 1 in box 4 has to go here. And 2 must be in one of these 4 cells because of this 2, 9 clue, which means that these 2 cells cannot be 1 and 2. So that becomes 3, 4 pair. And now this cell would have to be a 2. So that becomes 2. So that is a 3, 4. And you can remove the 2 from those cells. So that becomes 1, 3 pair. And that becomes a 2. Right? And now if you notice this clue, we can candidate the 5, 7, right? We can write 5, 7 candidate here. And similarly, this clue, we can write the 6, 8 here. And 3, 4 is still not helpful. So the next step, even after you find this start, the next step is even more tricky, guys. And it took me some time to get the idea here. So the idea in this Sudoku is, you know that the 3 is in one of these cells. Now, what happens if you don't have a 3 in one of these cells? And why is my line of thinking that way? That is the biggest question. Of course, you guys will easily understand the logic, but why are we thinking that what happens if a 3 is not here? Why? Because suppose if you have a 3 here, if you have a 3 in one of these 2 cells, that makes your solve a lot easier. So that gives a 3 in one of these cells, and you also have a 3 in one of these 2 cells, and that gives you a digit here. And that gives a lot of movement to the Sudoku, as you can use the 20 clue now to do something. So that was what my line of thinking was. What happens if you don't have a 3 in one of these 2 cells? So that becomes 3, right? If you don't have 3 here, which means that would be a 4. And immediately you get a 3 here for this 15 clue. Now if you look at the 15 clue, 3 plus 2 is 5. So these 2 cells must add up to 10. And the only way possible is 3 and 7. So that becomes 1 now, right? And since you have written 3, 4 here, so that becomes a 2 now. And you have 7 from these 3 cells. So these 2 cells must add up to 4. And the only possible way is using 1 and 3. And you will notice that 1 cannot be here because of the 1 here, and 1 cannot be here because of the 1 here. So which means that 3 cannot be here. A really tough deduction, guys, really tough deduction. I don't think there is any other start to the Sudoku. I'm 80% certain, because I was trying a lot of things in the Sudoku and I couldn't see anything other than this, guys. So I'm pretty sure this is what you are expected to see in the Sudoku at this point. So 3 must be in one of these cells, which means that this is not a 3, so that becomes 2, 4. So let us remove the corner pencil marks that we made here. So this is not 3, that's not 3, that's not 7, that's not 1. Okay, so 3 must be in one of these cells, and 3 is in one of these cells, which means that the line of thinking that we got earlier comes into play. So we get the 3 in box 2 now. So these 2 add up to 6, and we need 14 more from these cells. Okay, let us see. Okay, the next step is again tricky, guys, a really sharp one. And after this, I think the Sudoku should become really approachable. The next step I found that was really tricky was, can you have a 4 here? So if this is a 4, that immediately becomes a 3, because we know that the 3 is in one of these cells, right? And this 4 gives us a 3 here, and that is summing up to 5 now. So you need 10 more from these cells, and that cannot be 1 and 9 of course, because 9 is here. So that's a 3, that's a 7, that's a 1, right? And same idea now, same idea. So 3 plus 4 is 7, 7 plus 1 is 8. You need 3 more from these cells. Of course, you require a 1 and 2 to make the 3. And there is no cell to place the 1 now. 1 cannot be in row 1 column 5. 1 cannot be in row 2 column 4, which means that this cannot be a 4. What a tough deduction, guys, right? You need to think a little bit ahead. What I would say is that this is really difficult to think through the mind. You need to write some digits and see if you can get the contradiction in the shortest possible number of steps. And working out the logic in the mind is really difficult. And if you did work out the logic in your mind, then kudos to you, really. You're strong in visualizing things. So this is not a 4, that's a 3. That becomes 2, 4 now, and that becomes a 4 now, and that really helps out solve. So that becomes 3 now. And now you have how much from here? 9, right? 9 from these cells. So which means these 2 cells must sum up to 11. and they cannot be 2 9 3 8. So they are either 4 7 or 5 6. Let us see which is possible. Excuse me, guys. Sorry for that. What did I see next? Okay, we can make use of this 15 clue, right? 2 plus 4 is 6, and you need 9 more from that cell, right? So it is either 1 plus 8 or 3 plus 6, and that gives you a 6 8 pair, which means that these two cells cannot contain a 6, and that must resolve this diagonal, right? You get 9 from here, so that must sum to 11. So the only possible way now is 4 and 7. Beautiful. That's really beautiful, guys. So you have 1 2 5 triplet in box 2 now. I don't think you can have one here, that is apparent. And can you have, you got a 2 5 here, can you have a 2 5 pencil mark here? That gives you 7 from here, and 7 plus 4 is 11 already. So you can't have 2 5 here. So that would be 1, that would be 1, that would be 3, and that has to be a 2 or a 5. And I don't think you can have a 5 here, right? 5 plus 3, 8 plus 1 plus 1. So that gives you 10, and 10 plus 2 is 12 already. So that's not a 5, so that's a 2, that's a 5. And now if you add the digits along these diagonal, you get 7. So this would have to be a 4, that would have to be a 2. And this is how I deciphered the tougher steps in the Sudoku, guys. A really narrow sequence of logic. No, not easy by any stretch of imagination. Really difficult to see these things. So now these cells must be 6 8 9 for the box. So you have a 6 8 9 triplet here. So 9 must be in one of these cells. And that removes the 9 from here. So that's a 6 or 8. And this 3 gives you a 3 here, because we have a 3 clue here, and that 3 gives a 3 here. And for this 3 4, you can't have 3 here, you can't have 3 in row 6, so that gives you 3 here. One must go into one of these cells, one must go into one of these cells, classic. And you can mark a 9 in one of these cells. Of course 9 cannot be in row 4 because of this pencil mark, so that gives a 9 here. So 1 2 3 4 6 8 9. So this would be a 5 7 pair, and which gets resolved immediately. So that would be a 7, that would be a 5. So you have a 6 7 8 pencil mark here, and you have a 6 7 8 triplet in row 6. So that becomes a 5, that becomes a 7. So these cells must be 2 4 9 for the row. Can't have a 2 here, so 2 must be in one of these cells, and you can't have a 9 here, so that's a 4. So that becomes a 2 9 pair, and you need 4 in these cells, so that has to be a 4. These 4 cells would have to take a 4, right? Because you have a 3 4 clue there, so that gives a 4 here, and which means we can resolve this 4 7 pair. That's a 4, that's a 7. So you can complete this 15 diagonal. You have 7 from here, so that would be 8, that would be 6, that would be 8, that gives 8 here. And these two cells must be a 6 9 pair, and that gives you an 8 here, that becomes a 6 7 pair. 2 4 7 1 8 9, so that would be a 3 5 and 6. So you have 3 6 in column 5, so that would be a 5, that would be a 6, and that would be a 3. Awesome. So for column 4, we can sketch in the pencil marks 5 6 8. So these would be 2 7 9. So now this 35 diagonal comes into play, guys. A really classy way of using this clue. You have 6 10 12 from these 4 digits, right? 5 9 9 12 12 from these 4 digits. Now if this cell is a 1, there is no way to satisfy this 35 diagonal, so that can't be a 1, so 1 goes here, which means that would be 2 and 9. The same applies for 2. If you have 2 here, you get 14 from these 5 cells, and there is no way to satisfy the 35 diagonal now. Even if you have 9 in both of these cells, you cannot reach 35, so that would have to be a 9. That becomes 9, that becomes 2, so that becomes a 2 7 pair. Now if you add all these cells, 12 plus 9 21, and you need 14 from these cells, right? And this cannot be a 9 and this cannot be a 9, which means that this would be 5 6 7 8. That would be 5 6 7 8, because 14 means you can't have 4 in these cells, and 9 is also ruled out from the cells. Obviously 5 also cannot go, because that would require a 9 at the other end. So it's either 6 and 8 or 6 and 8 or both or 7. This is not 8 using classic, which means that this is not 6. I get a 3 here using classic, get a 1 here, and 2 must be in one of these cells, 7 must be in one of these cells, okay. If I look at row 3, 1 2 3 6 9, so this would be 5 or 7. That would be 4 5 7, because you have 4 8 here, so that becomes 5 7, and this can't be 8 because 8 is in these cells, so that becomes 4 5 7. You can place an 8 here, right? So let me write the remaining pencil marks in row 2, 6 9 and 6 7 and 9. You have a 6 7 9 triplet, which means that this would be a 2 5 pair, and a 6 7 9 triplet in here, 1 and 3. So 8 goes here, so only cell left now for 8. So this would be 2 4 5, right? And 2 and 5 is here, so that's a 4. No, 2 4 5 1 3 7 8, so that would be a 6 and 9. So that becomes a 7, that becomes 5, that becomes 4, that becomes 7, and that would be a 6 9 pair. So 4 5 7 1 3 8, so that would be 2 6 and 9. Okay, you can use this 35 diagonal now. There is only one digit left along the diagonal, so that would have to be a 7. And now the 6 7 pair can be resolved, so that becomes 7 6, and this would be a 5 8 for the column. So this has to be 4 6 9 for column 8, and now there is only one cell left for the 4 in column 8, so that's a 4, that's not a 4, so that's 6 and 9, that becomes a 4 now. So this 2 7 pair can be resolved, so that's a 7, that's a 2, and that gives the 2 here, so that's a 6 or 9, and that gives a 5 here because of this 2, so that's a 5, that's a 2, that's a 5, and this is not a 5, that's a 6 8, so that would be 6 8 and 9, 1 3 7 8 and 4 and 5. So you get the 2 in one of these cells, so that would have to be a 2 using classic. And this is a 6 9, which means that this would have to be a 6 and 9, 6 9 pair, so that removes the 6 from here and gives us only one cell for the 7 in row 7. So this is the only cell left, 2 5 7 1 3 4, so that would be 6 8 9. And now the final nail in the coffin of the Sudoku. You have 19 here, 4 plus 1 5, 5 plus 7 12, 12 plus 2 is 14, so this would be a 5, and that really races to finish the Sudoku. 8, that's a 5, that's an 8, that gives you 6 here, a 9 here, a 6 here, a 9 here, an 8 here, a 6 9, a 6 9, and this 6 and 9. And with that we have completed this really fantastic pinball Sudoku by Philipp Blume. The start, of course, was not so easy to find global logic, and after that, even after that, you have to get the right ideas of eliminating the 3 from this cell, and then checking what happens if you have a 4 here. And after that, the Sudoku became really approachable. So hope you guys enjoyed watching me solve the Sudoku. Please let us know your thoughts in comments, and please hit the subscribe button, guys. Would really appreciate if you hit the subscribe button. Hope to see you soon with a video. Bye bye.